It's me, guy. Rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everyone had a good week and you're ready to end this week with a bang and go into weekend. It's the weekend. It's the weekend coming up, and I'm ready for the weekend. I really am. I'm so tired. I'm ready to sleep, but I can't. Too much to do. So, we're going to wrap up Hosea today. Um, and we're going to dive next week, starting Monday, in um, an alternative to the prosperity gospel. Okay, we're going to talk about the alternative to the prosperity gospel starting Monday. Um, More so breaking down what it really means to be blessed and highly favored. We're going to try and break that apart, okay? Because that's been butchered. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that starting Monday. All right, blessed and highly favored starting Monday. But as for today, we are going to tackle what you call it, the rest of Hosea. So let us begin there. We're going to start by reading chapter 6. Um, so let's begin. I'll bring that up real quick. Now, of course, this is after we talked about yesterday, God removing his hand of protection from Israel because of their rebellion, and correlating it to the harlotry of Gomer. So here we have in chapter 6 the call to repentance. Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. And on the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his sight. Let us know, let us pursue the knowledge of God, of the Lord. His going forth is established as the morning. He will come to us like the rain, like the latter and the former rain to the earth. Now, there's a lot to break up on this, a lot to break up. Um, the catcher here, if in case you missed it, I doubt you missed it, is this very particular line right here. Okay. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up. Now, again, I'm not the theologian, but I use a little bit a thing called common sense, that things that are pretty stinking obvious are pretty stinking obvious. They're just some things that are pretty obvious to you, right? Some things you cannot avoid seeing, some things you cannot avoid figuring out. Some things are just in your face. The one in particular that's in my face right now is Hosea speaking thusly. And the ironic correlation between this and the death, burial, and the resurrection. Now, I could go on a whole soliloquy of things that could be and could not be, but this is not one of those could be's and could not be. This is, to me, one of the more obvious statements in the book that would prove the entirety of the Bible, and I don't care what else could be included or excluded. This very passage right here is confirmation enough for me that the Bible, whether tampered or not, has exactly what I need to know about God, about the history of his plan and the execution of it. This is all the confirmation I need. I don't need another thing. Like not no scholar, no I don't need anything else. If I were looking for proof, any proof that both the Bible was real, God had a hand in it, Jesus was predicted, and that salvation is real, this is all I need right here, this verse. So what why do I need just this verse? That very last line after he will raise us up is the cap on everything. That we may live in his sight is the cap on everything. Because if you fast forward to the death of Jesus and his resurrection, that's exactly what it entailed. He rose up so that we may live in his sight because we are now raised with him to be able to stand before God fully righteous in his sight. This is all the explanation I need for humankind, for the belief in God, for proof that he exists. This is all I need. If I can find it, I think I have it. I'm going to try and bring this up because it just crossed my mind. This is the perfect time for this particular video. This is the perfect time for it. All right, this is the perfect time for it. Now the question is, where did I put it? Hang on one second, because once I find this, I think you will be happy to see this because this is like I said, I don't normally listen to a whole lot of theologians and scientists and stuff like that, but there are a select few that when they say stuff, you have to be shocked by it because it's such a profound thing. Because there are some people that do a mass amount of research about this stuff, and I get it. And I said before, I'm not one of those that goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. However, I am the kind of person that if you've done that kind of work, I will listen and see if it'll break down to make any sense to me. And if it does make sense to me, I will listen to it. And in this case, this guy made a whole lot of sense. And it was a new perspective for me on how intricate of a plan God had when he set things in motion to send Jesus. And of course, now that I want it, I cannot locate it. Story of the life that I live here. I even forget how long ago I saw the video. I can't remember if I downloaded it or not. But the way he breaks this down, I will do it a disservice if I try. I'll break it down a little bit. I'll tell you what it is, and hopefully I'll find it. But he said that the Bible itself, um, if it were to be a regular book, it would make absolutely no sense if it were written without God and by man and pieced together the way it was pieced together. It would make absolutely no sense. There was no way you can take the things in the Old Testament, the things in the New Testament, put them all together and make them make absolute sense over the time span that it took, much less to have one human being in the person of Jesus fulfill everything that was spoken about by multiple men over multiple generations in different time zones, different locations, different uh, eras, everything, and have it all linked together and have one man fulfill everything that was written. The probabilities, it's minute. Um, I think I found it. I think I found it. Okay, yep, I found it. All right. Didn't take me too long. I just want you to listen to this, okay? Just listen. Um, and you tell me how profound this is, okay? Because like I said, I don't normally just go out of my way. This popped up across and I was just blown away by this. So
if you look at the Bible, we've got 66 books of the Bible, and they're written over a course of 15 to 1600 years. You have 40 contributing writers. I don't say authors because God's the author. You have 40 writers of these 66 books. Now think about it. They lived in 3 different continents, and they spoke 3 different languages, and they lived over a span of 1600 years. You take all their writings, you put it together, and you get this perfectly congruent book called the Bible. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean, okay, go back 1600 years. We go back, we're right around 500 AD. Pick a guy and tell him to write a book, a chapter, right? Then go 100 years and go to a different country, a guy that speaks a different language, tell him to write another chapter. Then go another 100 years, do the same thing, do this for 1600 years, come to 2019, 2020 time period, and tell me you got a book that makes any sense. Okay, but let's sweeten the deal. If you look at the Old Testament was written by several different writers living over the course of 1100 years. So they wrote this Old Testament, which is Genesis through Malachi, was written over 1100 years. We have several writers, correct? Now, these writers made predictions about the coming Messiah, Jesus Christ, okay? Predictions like he'd be born in Bethlehem, he'd be born of a virgin, he'd ride into Jerusalem on a donkey, he'd be betrayed by a friend, he'd be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. That 30 pieces of silver, it's actually in the Old Testament, would buy a potter's field. I mean, on and on and on. There's 300 of these predictions in this Old Testament, okay? So Jesus comes along, okay? So the last book is written 400 years before Jesus was born. So we got 1100 years. The last book's written 400 years before Jesus, and Jesus comes along and fulfills every single one of the 300 predictions. What are the chances? But there's actually this scientist named Dr. Peter Stoner, and I have his little book. Okay, this book, I went to buy it on Amazon because it's out of print for years, and it was costing $800. But a pastor knew how much I loved this, and he bought it for me as a gift. So here is the book, okay? But this is a scientist who lived in the 20th century, and he said, what are and his expertise was probability, okay? So what do I mean by probability? Simple probability, if I've got a 5-gallon paint bucket and I got 9 white tennis balls and 1 yellow tennis ball, and I put them in there and I shake them all up and I blindfold you and I say, okay, pick out 1 ball, Scott. What the chances of you picking out the 1 yellow tennis ball is 1 in 10.
Okay. Now this is where it's going to get crazy, and I'll make it make sense here in a minute as to why this relates to Hosea. I will make it make sense in a minute why it makes sense with Hosea. Well, what you're about to hear is how no matter what mankind tries to do to disprove God, they always come up with a method while in their disproving that turns around and proves God. In their efforts to disprove him, they find multiple other ways to prove him that far outweigh their disproving. Okay, now you remember he's mentioning probability. 1 ball in 10 balls. You blindfold, you pick it, the odds of it are 1 in 10. What you're going to hear about the probability of what Jesus did It may not blow your mind, but it blew mine. Okay.
Is an expert on it, right? So he doesn't do this research alone. He gathers 600 science students from 12 different classes. And they go on this massive project to figure out what are the chances of any human being from the time of Jesus' birth to the end of the 20th century, 2,000 years, any human being on earth could fulfill just 8 of those prophecies. Just 8. Okay. Now they picked really simple ones. All right. Number 1, Christ to be born in Bethlehem. Micah writes that. Christ to be preceded by a messenger. Isaiah in a totally different generation writes that. Christ to enter Jerusalem on a donkey. Zechariah in a completely different generation. Christ to be betrayed by a friend. Christ to be sold for 30 pieces of silver. The money is to be thrown into God's house. Christ to be silent before his accusers. Christ to be executed by crucifixion as a thief. That's the 8 prophecies they picked.
And the crucifixion wasn't even a thing yet.
I know, that's what's crazy.
I know, there's some prophecies there that, I mean...
They didn't even invent crucifixion until... So when this was written, it didn't even exist, right? So they go on hours and hours of research study, doing all that they do, that these scientists do. And their results was actually studied by a third party. And that third party was the American National Scientific Council. And you know what the American National Scientific Council said? What they found was conservative. So what I'm about to share with you is conservative. They said the chances of any human being on earth from the time of Jesus till the end of the 20th century of fulfilling those 8 prophecies is 1 in 10 to the 17th power. Dr. Stoner said, let me make this palatable for the average man and woman. So he said, if you take a silver dollar, which is about that big, and if you have 10 to the 17th silver dollars, you have no place on earth to store them. You have to just spread them out on the ground. And if you have that many silver dollars, you will cover the entire state of Texas 2 feet deep with silver dollars.
Wow.
Now, gather all those silver dollars, mark one of them, shuffle them all up, distribute them over the entire state of Texas, blindfold a guy in Oklahoma, put him on a helicopter, start flying over the state of Texas. The state of Texas, it takes 17 hours to drive through. Fly over the state of Texas. At any time he says let down, the guy gets out, he's still blindfolded, right? He picks 1 silver dollar. Chances of picking out that 1 silver dollar is the chances that any human being could fulfill these 8 prophecies over 2,000 years. And Jesus didn't fulfill 8. He fulfilled all 300. It is literally.
Now, like I said, I'm not the kind of guy that goes out of my way to try and, piecemeal things together. But when I hear certain things that floor you, this particular thing floored me. It floored me, not because of disbelief, but because of awe. I was in awe. Now, the reason I was in awe, man has always taken the idea that math is theirs. Okay. And that math is the absolute. And probabilities and all that stuff is on their side. And the atheist has always taken the stance that Christ couldn't exist because of blah, 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 blah. Science, math, and all that stuff. Ledgers, not just the book, not just the ones that are written in the Bible. There are other books that mention everything that's in the Bible. Okay, there are other books that solidify timelines of history, both in the people that existed, the monarchies that existed, the towns that existed, the events that occurred. Multiple books covered from different angles, the same things covered in the books that are in the Bible. To disprove anything from God, man has set out to do it by means of science and math. In this occasion, it backfired so severely. I don't know the guy's name. I just came across his video. I don't know his name. It backfired so severely because if you're taking the same history that you want to take for yourself as a man, and there are pages upon pages written history that, like he said, over time say the same thing that occurred later on, you have to then decide whether or not you actually do believe in history and in math. He will use the wisdom of the wise, right? He'll use the foolishness to confound the wise, and his wisdom is higher than ours. He already knew beforehand that man's wisdom would utterly destroy them because his wisdom was already light years ahead of theirs. Now, the link between what he just expounded to you and Hosea is this: that person, God, even able to do all of that over time in history, in preparation, in planning, in prediction, still set a way to have communion with us, in spite of. That much forethought went into a plan for reconciliation. If you don't see how massive that is, that you were in the kind of rebellion that's equated to harlotry and Gomer, and the ever living God set about a plan to come and get us out of harlotry, that God who could have easily just ended it, he set a plan in motion for us. And not because of us, because of him. And like I said, this line right here, for me, sums everything up. What the individual just spoke is only cherries on the top of this thing. Only cherries. The actual cake, this is it. Let us know, let us pursue the knowledge of the Lord. His going forth is established as the morning. He will come to us like the rain, like the latter and the former rain to the earth. O Ephraim, what shall I do to you? O Judah, what shall I do to you? For your faithfulness is like a morning cloud, and like the early dew it goes away. Therefore I have hewn them by the prophets, I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and your judgments are like light that goes forth. For I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. But like men, they transgressed the covenant. There they dealt treacherously with me. Gilead is a city of evildoers and defiled with blood, and bands of robbers lie in wait for man. So company of priests murder on the way to Shechem. Surely they commit lewdness. I have seen a horrible thing in the house of Israel. There is harlotry. There is the harlotry of Ephraim. Israel is defiled. Also, O Judah, a is appointed for you when I return the captives of my people. The entire book of Hosea is a descriptor of us. Do not get this twisted. The entire book is a descriptor of how unworthy we are of his blessing. How unworthy we are. This guy really doesn't know timing, man. Like Corey's the worst, bro. He's literally the worst, bro. He he is literally the worst. You know, and I'm gonna light him up real quick. Um oh. Oh. Hmm. Someone asked if I could explain the latter and the former rain to the earth. Um, I cannot explain that to you. I can only assume that it means either the rains from the floods and the rains that bless, but I cannot venture to say what that means. Um, and the reason I cannot venture to say what that means is one, I don't know if there's a cross reference for it, but I have not spent any time doing that. Um, but here's what I do know about it outside of what research would suggest to me. Rain shows up at a very specific time. Right? He causes the rain to fall on the just and on the unjust, right? Every time he mentions rain, it's in two respects: to bless or to end. Those are the two references I've seen of rain: to bless and to end. So when I see the references of rain and it says latter or former, without my researching anything, the only thing I'm gathering from it is that he's going to come just like rain does at the right time. And when he shows up, it's either to bless or to end, either to cause growth or to end it. And because it's based on his timing, I don't care when the rain comes. Because it's based on his deciding of the need of it, I don't care when the rain comes. But I do know the rain is going to come when it's needed. The same way he said before in the verse before, the line before, he said, his going forth is established as the morning, which means it's constant, it's consistent, it's every time. Morning has yet failed to occur. It has yet to fail to occur. Not once has morning not shown up. Right? Not once has morning not shown up. That's God. Very consistent, always on time, knows when, it has a time frame, right? And like rain, with the purpose of it, it has its own timing. And all of it's orchestrated and directed by God. That's all I need to know. I said me. People have all options to go and investigate that. But for me, trying to break that verse apart, what I see is that In Hosea, the reason that it's such a impacting book is that it is a perfect descriptor of mankind both then and now. And it's even more perfect with the fact that he sent someone to wed Gomer, the same way he sent Jesus to wed the church. The church, though, is in that same state. That's what we were. We were harlots, rebellious, doing our own thing. And in order to come to that marriage, there has to be a turning. You can't come to that turning without recognizing what you were. Remember, we talked about the law showed me sin so that sin could be utterly sinful to me. It's the exact same way. The exposing of the harlotry of Israel was to bring them to a knowledge of where they were compared to where they should be. Call it symbolism if you want when it comes to, the New Testament and whatever. But to me, it says everything I need to know about current day events. It says everything I need to know. Modern day individuals live just like Gomer. And Jesus came just like Hosea. But not only did he come to wed, but he also brought the judgment of not being and following him. That came along with it. Brought the judgment, brought the way out. Exactly as it happened in Hosea. Brought the judgment, brought the way out. Brought the call to repent, same as Jesus did. All the same. You see, today we have a calling on the modern society, as we might call it. You remember the old gospel of turn and burn? Remember that? Turn or burn. People used to say that it was those hell and fire, brimstone kind of sermons. You shouldn't be doing that no more because, that's a problem. So it has become a problem to say what's going to happen if you don't turn. Should you not be afraid of the being apart from God? Should that not put fear in you? Should you be okay with it? You want to know how we got to this location here? We forgot that there's an alternative to this, to this life. We forgot that disobedience yields a whole nother result. We want to focus so much on love, 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 love. But we never talk about that love yielding a result of a new life. We want to keep loving people where they are and not ask them to leave it behind. You see, what we want to do is to go to Gomer and live with Gomer where Gomer is. We don't want to pull her from the life of harlotry. We want to join in the harlotry with her. because we don't want to put Gomer in a position of, you know, I don't want you to feel bad about who you are because that's just how you are. You don't need to stop necessarily, but God loves you. That's where we are now. And when you tell people continuing that path leads to destruction, you're using fear as a tactic. You should be afraid. You should be afraid. You should be. I think he even tells us that, right? I think he tells us that, didn't it? Didn't he tell us to be afraid? No, he didn't tell us to be afraid. Pretty sure he tells us to be afraid. Or did he say, don't fear? Fear not? Is that what he said? What should we not be afraid of versus what should we be afraid of? I didn't give you a spirit of fear and timidity. Okay, that's what he said. When it comes to what? Promoting the word, speaking of him. I didn't give you that fear of worry. That's fear. That's a different thing. I didn't give you that. However, however, I want you to remember one thing. One thing. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sin is left, but only a fearful expectation of judgment and of raging fire that will consume the enemies of God. Anyone who rejected the law of Moses died without mercy on the testimony of two or three witnesses. How much more severely do you think someone deserves to be punished who has trampled the Son of God underfoot, who has treated as an unholy thing the blood of the covenant that sanctified them, or who has insulted the Spirit of grace? For we know him who said, it is mine to avenge, I will repay. And again, the Lord will judge his people. It is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Mm, mm, mm. He came to pursue Gomer and to bring her back a bride and to take her into the wilderness and speak softly and kindly to her so that she may leave her harlotry ways and come back and be the bride that she was supposed to be. But understand this, the lack of turning only has one end. The lack of turning only has one end. If you hear his voice today and reject it, just understand that you made that choice. You made that choice. Understand that you have to live with that choice now, and you have to die with that choice at the end. If you once said that you follow the way and then spat on the cross, there is nothing left for you. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. There is a reason why in the last days, at the judgment, he said, many will come to him and say, Lord, Lord. They honestly believe in their minds that they were doing something, anything right. That they would have enough gall to say, didn't we do this in your name and that in your name? Only for him to say, I never knew you. That's we have to be prepped for what's coming. And what's coming our way is both persecution and power. But we have to endure the persecution. They're going to come for our heads. They're going to tell us stuff. They're going to, but Hosea, but Jesus made a way, brought us to life, brought us to bridehood. We're his now. Do not be afraid to tell people what's going to happen to them if they don't turn, because it's true. This modern gospel of you can't tell people that because they'll be afraid, or you can't tell them that because you'll hurt them. Well, then be hurt. But you're not going to say, I didn't tell you. You will never be able to say, I didn't tell you. Not once. In any case, Monday, we're going to tackle the health and wealth and all that stuff, gospel. And what exactly is it that God is actually giving to the church? What is his actual blessing? Has any of you gone to the pastor and asked that question? That what does God really want to bless me with? Has anyone asked their pastor that yet? Anyone? Anyone took the chance to ask yet? If you have, can you give me the answer you got? If you haven't yet, are you waiting until Sunday? Anyone done that? Anyone call them, text them? Do you have that kind of avenue? Has no one taken that challenge up yet? Please take the challenge up. Please. I think it'd be a great practice, a great exercise to do. Try it. And that's fine. Brenda, listen, I'll give you some advice of how to stay content and joyous, and even, I dare say, happy. If they reject him, they reject him. That's their choice to make. It really is. If they don't believe, then they don't believe. It's okay. It really is okay. Don't let people make you believe that somehow you need to be like angry or sad or upset. They have chosen. The only thing you can do is live out what you know of God. That's all you can do. Who knows? Maybe they may not listen to what you say. They may be watching what you do. And they may turn in time. But until then, you don't need to stress about anything that they decide. Just let them be. You've told them. That's all. That's all. You've told them. You have told them exactly what you need to tell them. You have opened that door. You've shown them what salvation is. From there, they have to decide. So let them decide. Let them decide. Oh no, and I get it. I get that it might blow your mind, but it shouldn't. Here's why it shouldn't blow your mind. Because he told you this would happen. He said in the last days, people will be lovers of themselves, deceivers, okay, given over to every kind of evil. That he said it would happen. So what you should really be is like, well, he was right. There it is. He wasn't lying. Wasn't lying. In either case, guys, keep your spiritual necks on a swivel, and be ready. Be ready. We will be having the Savage Patriots today. We are going to be discussing the Covenant school shooting deal. Apparently, the school does not want the manifesto of the shooter out. And we have found something that is a little bit disturbing, if true. If true. I think we remember telling you guys that if we found anything, we'd let you know we found something. We found something. Woo-wee, we found something. Anyway, so join us for that. 6:30 Eastern today. And we do have a panel tonight on the mix. You don't want to miss that one. It's we have some. It's not David. Don't be mad. It's not going to be David. It's other people. Okay, other people, not David. Don't worry about that. If you guys have seen the mix and then you know who I'm talking about, he's not coming back to the show tonight. It's other people. But don't miss that. So the mix tonight at 9:30 Eastern. Savage Patriots at 6:30 Eastern. So thank you in advance for coming and dropping your likes and comments and shares and all that stuff. Monday again. What does God want to bless us with? That's going to be the new topic for the most of the week. So I've heard. But it won't be through me. I'll tell you that much. Okay, because he has not endeared himself to me, nor I to him. So stony ground. So all that stuff. So that's weird guy. Anyway, really love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the Savage Patriots in a couple hours, 3-4 hours or so. No, 5 hours. And we'll talk then. Until then, wisdom calls to you from the streets. Please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself in no way.